Thank you so much for joining us for our OmegaRecruit training for summer 2024, gearing up for this fall. My name is Sarah Beth Russell. I am Professional Services Specialist, and my co-host today is Heather McLeod. She is our Director of Professional Services, and I am actually going to turn it over to her before we start to give us a little background information on OmegaFi, which is the overhead company for OmegaRecruit. So I will turn it over to her now.
Thanks, Sarah Beth. Again, welcome everyone. Thanks so much for joining our webinar today. Yes, like Sarah Beth said, OmegaFi is the company that hosts and maintains OmegaRecruit. And we have actually been around for more than 30 years providing technology solutions to help customers like you all with managing finances, streaming operations, recruiting new members, as we're talking about today, as well as communicating with members. We work with 57 different national headquarters, as well as local chapters and house corporations and IFC and Panhellenic councils, as well as alumni associations. And we work with all of those individuals across more than 650 campuses and continue to remain the industry leader when it comes to technology in the fraternity and sorority community. And we are based out of Columbus, Georgia, where we securely process more than $1.1 million per day for our clients. And we've securely processed more than 4 billion since we began in 1992. We are deeply committed to serving and promoting and advancing the fraternity and sorority experience. And we aim to make raving fans with every individual or group that we work with by reaching and innovating and acting with agility. And we challenge ourselves to dream big every day and help others achieve their own dreams. So to say that we're passionate about what we do is an understatement, and it's this passion that's encouraged our clients to trust us to do the heavy lifting so that you all can focus on your mission and having fun. So just a little bit about OmegaFi, and we are very excited to help you all get prepared for the upcoming recruitment season. I'll turn it back to you, Sarah Beth.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Heather. Heather is also going to be helping me out today in the question section. I know if you joined a little earlier, you may have heard me already mention this, but we do have a question section. You can ask questions during the webinar by popping that into that section on your screen. If you want to go ahead and test it out, we'd love to see you put in your name and what chapter you're with so we can see who is with us today. But Heather will be answering those during the webinar, and then at the end we'll have Q&A where we'll look at those questions and answer them live as well. We'll go ahead and get started with our agenda today. So we're going to go over a few things. We're going to look at tips for successful recruitment, just things that we recommend as best practices for doing your recruitment, getting started. We're going to look at login and account setup, so getting your members logged in, as well as if you have a new OmegaRecruit account, getting that set up. And then we'll go through the main menus and features of OmegaRecruit, as well as look at the voting and reporting on the member side of things. And then, like I said before, we will have Q&A. So first, for our tips for successful recruitment, the biggest thing is to be proactive and prepare. So we have 3 things here that help best to keep you proactive and prepare you for the upcoming recruitment season. So that is first, logging in. This is for you as the admin, as well as all of your users who will be voting during the recruitment season. We do suggest at least about a week in advance, getting those members logged in. That's just going to help ensure that everybody is good to go and have logged into the system before the day of recruitment. That way, if anything, if there is any type of issue, you can reach out to support and it's not the day of and you're scrambling at the last minute. So logging in early is important. If your users have previously used OmegaRecruit before, you will, because we had the master reset in May, you will have to re-add your users, but if they've used OmegaRecruit before, they will use the same email and password to get logged in. If you use Vault or Omega One, make sure you are adding them with that same exact email so they don't have multiple logins, but they'll use that same thing to log in. If you have new users who've never used OmegaRecruit before, you'll need to, when you add them, they'll actually need to set up their account. And we'll look at what that looks like in a minute. And they'll have to go through that process, and then they'll be good to go. But you can go ahead and get them set up whenever you're ready and start doing mock recruitment as soon as possible. And that is kind of the second tip we have, is to practice. So setting up mock recruitments, we have practice files within OmegaRecruit that help you to get familiar with the system and the functionality, as well as your members being able to use that in advance so they can be familiar with how to submit their voting. So that, again, that way it's not day of recruitment and people are confused, asking questions. As the person who is in charge of recruitment, you are going to be very busy that day, so you're going to want everybody to be as prepared as possible, as little questions your way as possible. So practicing ahead of time can help with that, and then training on your part as the admin. So we have lots of materials out there. You are here on the webinar today, which is a great way to get started. We also have in-app help, which we'll look at, and this is just gonna, by reviewing that material and learning more, it's just gonna help you be more comfortable and confident with the tools that are within OmegaRecruit. So if you are a newer chapter and you have not gotten your account set up yet, you'll get an email that looks like this to go ahead and get your account started. You'll follow the instructions there, create your login, and get started with this. If you've already logged in before, then you should know what that looks like, and you'll be able to add your users accordingly. Admins will still have login access after master reset, so you should be able to log in, and then at that point you can add your users. This will be the email that they receive. Again, if they have already used OmegaRecruit before, they'll log in with the same information. And then if they're a new user, they will create their account. When you're adding your users to the system, make sure that you are using the same email that they use for any other things that are OmegaFi related, so Vault or Omega One. That's going to help them not have multiple different logins. And we will go ahead and jump into the system to look at how to add those users. So when you first log in, you're probably going to see this after the master reset. It is just going to direct you to the chapter screen here where you'll need to put in your recruitment dates. So you'll go over to edit chapter and just pick some dates for recruitment. So whatever your recruitment is, you can go ahead and put that in. If not, you can just set whatever date you need for that until formal recruitment dates are given. And you can go ahead and add your users. You can go to add users here on the left-hand side under the users dropdown. And you have the option here to upload a file. With the file, you just need the first name, last name, and email address. Or you can add individually. So if you upload the file and realize that somebody was left out of it, you can individually upload them by just using these fields here. And then once you've uploaded those users, you can view them in your user list. You can star your users from here. We'll look at this when looking at the matching process later. This is also where you can make someone an admin or not an admin. You can restrict a user from voting, as well as delete users. Like, let's say after fall, you need to delete users who won't be returning in spring because they're graduating. You can do that here. And you can also use the groups here to number your users for bump groups as well. We want to make recruitment as easy as possible for you guys. So today, to walk through kind of how to set up your mock recruitment, we're going to be going over 3 different things, kind of basically to the things that'll get you started. So we're going to go over how to add your rounds, how to upload your P&Ms. That can be a tricky part for a lot of people, especially when it comes to getting that file uploaded and all the information in there correctly. So we'll go over that, and then uploading your parties as well. You may or may not use parties or be familiar with parties, but if not, we'll go over those today and how they can help you within the recruitment process. Going back here, your main page is always going to be this drop down here, P&M list, and this is going to be that setup page. Typically, when you log in, if you haven't gone anywhere else, it'll direct you immediately to this page. This is the setup page that'll walk you through each of the steps for your chapter to set up recruitment. Practice files are included on this page. So I know I mentioned those earlier. You can click on these hyperlinks here and it'll download those practice files. That way you can run through practice recruitment with fake data prior to the real deal. We don't recommend practicing with actual recruitment data. So that's why we provide these files for you. And you can download them by clicking on each of them, like I said, and save them however you want. And then when we go through these steps, you'll upload them according with each step, and it gives you kind of a breakdown of like how you would need to set up, which is how we're going to do it today. So we'll follow these instructions so you can kind of see what that looks like. So each of the steps are numbered and they have a clickable link to take you to that page where you can complete them. You can also get to each of these pages from the menu on the left-hand side of the page, but we'll go ahead and start with step 1 and set up our rounds. So this is going to take us to the edit rounds page, and you can use the add rounds here to create all of the rounds for your recruitment. And as you notice, I'm adding rounds. The preference is always going to follow that last round, so that flag will always move to the last round. When setting up your rounds, we do recommend setting them all up at the same time. So today we're going to set up 3 rounds. For example, it's just important to make sure you set all of them up initially to ensure the calculation or the system is going to calculate your scores correctly. So especially if you have any specific scoring, you want to make sure everything is set up to begin with before you start voting. So just to ensure that everything's calculated correctly, you're not getting any errors in the system, we just suggest setting those all up. Another thing with your rounds, even if a round spans multiple days, it doesn't mean you have to put multiple rounds within the system. That's what the parties are for. We'll look at that in a second. But once you've done your rounds, you can hit the pin icon here if you want to edit the names. So we'll call this one Open House. We'll call this one Sisterhood, and then we'll just keep it simple for the last one and call that Prep. And then you want to make sure you save your rounds for the final step there to make sure that those are all within the system. So that is good to go, and we've saved our rounds. Now at this point, we'll look at kind of the party voting. Like I said, if you have rounds that maybe span multiple days, if you have a larger school or you have it split up in multiple days to make sure that girls are able to attend, then you can use party voting rather than setting up multiple rounds. There is a 20 round max limit on this, so just keep that in mind. If open house is like 1 round and it's 5 days, you can just set up the 1 round for open house and use your party voting to split that up for however many parties are visiting. So with the practice files, we're going to have 12 parties for open house, and then we'll have 9 parties for sisterhood just based on the files, and we'll leave pref open voting. So with the party voting, the nice thing about this is with your parties, it only is going to show the P&Ms who are in each party when you open the voting for round 1, party, whatever. That way it makes a shorter list. You know, if there's multiple Ashleys going through recruitment, it's easier to know I'm voting in round 1. I spoke to X Ashley. It's the only Ashley in this party. And it's easier for your users to vote on your P&Ms, which there are other identifying things. We'll look at the ballot later, and you'll see how you can make sure you're voting on the right P&M, but party voting just helps narrow that list down. You're not searching through every single P&M, especially if you have bigger recruitment. So we'll go ahead and save that again. Now we'll go back to the P&M list here, and as you can see, step 1 has gone ahead and disappeared. We don't have a step 3, that's because that's adding the users, and we already have users added on this test account, but we'll go ahead and go to step 2. This is uploading your P&Ms. So depending on your school, this may look a little different for you, this page. If your campus uses ICS, you can actually connect to ICS. And once you've connected, this page is going to show just a button that says upload PNMs, and you'll have the ability to import that from, actually, I think the button says import from ICS, and you'll have the ability to import those PNMs automatically. If your campus uses another software like Campus Director, what you'll have to do is download a file of your PNMs from that software and then upload it here. I do want to note that even if your campus does use the ICS, you can still run through practice recruitment with the test files and upload them like how we're doing today. You just have to disconnect first from ICS, upload the practice files, and then connect back to ICS for actual recruitment. And we'll look at later where you can connect and disconnect from ICS if your school uses that. So to assist with the upload process, though, we do provide these detailed instructions and examples. So if you're not using ICS and you are needing to upload a file, this is what that file will need to look like. You can also adjust the file, the practice file, if you want to have all of this information, because some of the columns I don't think are used. So if you want to practice with all the columns available, you can, but this is kind of what it'll need to look like. Just keep in mind that any like special formatting can get in the way of the system being able to read the data. So you'll want to make sure there's no like bolding, highlighting, anything like that. And then we just ask you review all the columns listed and that the formatting is correct for that. So for example, the naming should be all correct. So if you have preferred name, as nickname, it's not going to upload correctly. So follow these headers accurately. And then also like for the class names, when you're adding those like class or year, it's better to use like freshman, sophomore rather than year one, year two. So anything like that, just make sure you're using the right verbiage as you are uploading that. Same with if your calculations involve any of the criteria here, make sure you have all the things filled in like GPA, anything like that. So these are just common mistakes that we see a lot when uploading. And again, depending on your organization's scoring, that can affect the overall. So just make sure you review this file carefully while before you upload it. And then you'll save it as the Excel 97 2003 workbook. And I will go ahead and get that file uploaded so we can have our PNMs. And once those are uploaded, you'll see this green box here saying that everything is good to go. So we can see here there's a warning that there are some missing columns that aren't required though. So even though they're missing, it's fine. You don't have to have those columns. I believe the only columns you have to have are first and last name and the member identification number. We'll look at when we go to upload PNM like individually, it'll show what the requirement is. Oh, I'm sorry, it shows right here. First, last name, and MIN. You don't need to worry about these, but if you do get any sort of error message, it will also show here. It'll show you where it's at. So if you don't get the green box and there is something you need to fix, it'll let you know and where that is so you can easily fix it with. But once you have the file uploaded, we can go back to the PNM list here. And when we close this, we'll see that all the PNMs are loaded into the system. And if you open this back up, we'll see that step 2 is now disappeared. And like I said, step 3 is adding your users. So that's why we're not seeing that there. But this is now good to go. And now we'll just look at, we're going to skip down to step 5 here. So step 4 through the rest are not going to disappear like the others do. This is because you're going to repeat these steps throughout the process. So we'll go ahead and look at those accordingly. But we're going to skip to step 5 and upload our parties. So for open house, we're going to upload our parties first. We'll just start with that one. And that is the 12 parties. Again, you'll get the green box here if that is good to go. We do provide instructions here as well. This is a little simpler than the last one. This is also another page that if you use ICS will look a little different. So you'll have the button again to import from ICS your parties. But if you use another software, again, you'll have to download the file for the parties and you'll just need your MIN. That is your member identification number. So all of your PNMs will have one of those. Typically, the system will assign it. If it doesn't, you can just number them 1 through however many PNMs, but that just gives them an individual identifier. So if you have 2 Ashley Smiths or whatever it may be, they're not getting confused because they have that individual MIN, and then it'll have the party listed beside their MIN. Again, uploading that with the saving it as a 97 2003 workbook. Like I said, this file is a lot simpler, but you just still want to make sure there's no special formatting on there. One thing to note on this is, especially for round 1, you should have all PNMs visiting you at some point. So please make sure that you've included all parties for the round in that same file, and then make sure all PNMs are assigned to a party. In the future rounds, if a PNM is not assigned to a party, it will update them to an inactive status or status of regret. So if they're not invited back and you don't assign them a party, then it'll automatically update their status. But you want to make sure for the first round that nobody is left out of that so they don't get updated to an inactive status. So just make sure you're checking those things when you're uploading that. So returning to the PNM list, the setup page, like I said before, steps 4 through 7 or through 8 are going to continue to stay on here. And now that we have reviewed setting up the chapter, with the rounds, uploading your PNMs and uploading the parties, we can go ahead and kind of discuss some of the menu items found on the left-hand side. So like I said previously, everything we reviewed from the setup page can be found within the menu as well, but there are also a few other pages. So we'll start with the PNM menu. That's where we're at currently, that PNM list. It's the same as the setup page, so you can open and close that in this corner up here. So if you ever need to get back to the setup page, you can always open that up and then close it accordingly. On the PNM list, we're going to have a few different options. This is where you can basically, it's your primary hub of information. It's where you can review all your PNMs, their information, their scores once votes start coming in. If we click up here on the little hamburger menu in the right-hand corner, that's what we call that because it kind of looks like a little hamburger. We have a few different options. So we have the refresh and recalculate. These can be used to make sure that you just have the most up-to-date information scores as your members are voting. So if you're in the middle of a round and you are just wanting to update that, you can go ahead and click those accordingly. If you select export your PNM list, it's going to export a full report of all the information within this list here. If you choose the select columns here, you can see all of the columns that you can show within the PNM list. So I'm going to make sure we have a few that I want on here. Let's see, I want to make sure we have interest and starred. I think let's go ahead and add at hometown as well, and tags, and we'll go ahead and update that. And so you can see as we have updated those columns, they have pulled into the system. So you can just mark any columns you want. If you have also custom columns, so when you're looking at this, if you have any custom columns that you used, you can do that during the upload. You just have to name them custom 1 through 6. If you use any of those, you can select them here, and we'll look at later where you can rename them. But you have those, and I do always suggest, just as a best practice, making sure all of your rounds are selected so you can see the scores. So make sure we have 3 rounds, so all of those are selected, and then I always like to make sure that the overall is also selected so you can see all of your rounds accordingly. So with adding these columns, there's a few that you can go through. I know we added some. You can double click into the picture column here. When you do, it's going to show you the picture URL listed. Most campuses are going to provide that URL for all PNMs. If one's not available, you can get that online as long as you right-click on the image that was provided and copy the image address and paste that URL here. It'll put their image in there. It does have to be the image address and not the URL for the page where the picture is located, so just make sure when you're doing that, if you're needing to update their picture, you're getting that from the right place. You can also double click into interests to adjust those. Same with major and admin notes. Admin notes can be used for a few different things. So if you just want to add any type of notes like graduated high school early, and note that within the PNM list, you can have that. We also have tags, which you can look at how to use those to your advantage. And we have the starred column here. So when doing the matching that was mentioned earlier, I know we looked at how to star your users when we saw how to get those uploaded. You can also star your PNMs, and that can be used in the matching, which we'll explore a little more further along. But if you have PNMs maybe that you really would like to recruit, and you want to pair them with people who are great recruiters, you can star your users who are excellent recruiters and star your PNMs who are high priority, to make sure that in the matching process they get partnered together accordingly. So that's one thing you can use it for. Some people use it for other things as well. You can kind of be creative with that, but that's what we typically see when using that. Another thing that you can do with your list is you can use the search and sort. So if you want to pull just your freshmen, you can search for your freshman here, and it will just pull the list of anybody who is a freshman. Now, the way it does that, though, is based on the notes in here. So if their class is listed as freshmen, or one thing you have to be careful about is if in the admin notes it says anything about freshmen or interests, maybe like in the admin notes played freshman volleyball, but now they're a sophomore, it can pull that in there. So if you want to refine your list even further, you can use the little icon here to go through how to get a more refined list. So you can look at that accordingly and use that for your search. For your sort, you can type it up here, or you can sort your list accordingly by double clicking on the column that you're wanting to sort it by. So if we sort it by parties, we can now see that accordingly. Go ahead and star some of the ones in party 1 so we can see that for matching. But those are a few different things you can do with your list here, to put the information in, to use it for the best way for your chapter. Another thing that we can look at under the hamburger menu, the last thing there is that slideshow. So this is the in-browser slideshow. If you click on that, you can use your arrow keys to go through that. This is going to show, if you have any like sort of sort or search on your PNM list, it will only show what's in that search. So this is showing only freshmen. So keep that in mind. Make sure you've cleared your search if you're wanting to show all your PNMs. In the little menu here, you have where you can add or take away things here. So if you don't want to see certain things, you can go ahead and remove them or keep them added in. Add all of them if you want, however much you're wanting to see or not see. And then, like I said, you can use the arrow keys to scroll through. You can hit the P key on your keyboard, and that will take you to this screen here where you can then print these if you want. You probably will have to reformat that to the page accordingly. So just keep that in mind. You can adjust this to make sure they fit on the page. But if you're wanting to print those out, you can do that with this in-browser slideshow, and then you can hit escape to go back to your main screen here. So next that's pretty much everything within the PNM list for now until we put in votes. So next we're going to look at under the PNM list drop down, or the PNM drop down here, add PNM. So this is where you can add an individual PNM. Let's say you've uploaded all your PNMs, but one joins late and you need to add them. You can add them individually, or you can take that original file and add them into the file and just re-upload that. It won't duplicate any of PNMs that you've already uploaded because they have that individual MIN, so it won't overwrite or anything. And it'll just add whatever new PNMs you have on that Excel file, but you can also just add them individually using this right here. There is a lot of information, so if you have all the information, you can add it. But again, all you need is your MIN, the preferred first name, and the last name. Or I'm sorry, yeah, the first and last name. Next, we will look at upload PNMs. We've already looked at this page, but again, this is where you can upload them in mass. And again, this is your parties page. So we'll go ahead and upload for round 2 parties. So those are good to go. And then we have our comments report here. This is kind of a pared down version of the report. There's another comments report as well that allows you to get a little more specific. But if you're just wanting to pull all the comments that are on a PNM, this is going to be as your members are voting, they can on their ballot put in a comment, and this report will just pull any of those comments that were added to a PNM on the ballot while voting. You can download that here accordingly. Then we have recommendations. So if you use this, we do provide this for you. You can share this link with your PNMs to provide for anybody who is wanting to submit a recommendation for a PNM, and then you can export that and see any recommendations that were submitted for any specific PNMs. So you can use this accordingly if you don't have somewhere where recommendations are already recorded or submitted, but this is just something that we do provide for you guys. And then under the reports tab, this is going to be the bulk of your reporting. So we have the PNM report. Here, this is going to be pretty similar to your PNM list. If you export that, you can just include only your active PNMs and also include comments here, which is nice. So you can add those on. We have the PNM status, so you can see active or non-active PNMs with this report. You can pull your votes accordingly. I know, I think in one of the pre-submitted questions I saw, somebody was asking about how you can see your votes. You can see it on the PNM list and export that, or you can specifically do this votes report, and then you can do it with only your active PNMs, and you can specify by round. So if you're in your sisterhood round and you're just wanting to see votes for sisterhood, you can pull just that if you're looking for that. And then you can choose your sort option. So if you sort it by user, it'll show the user who voted and then everybody who they voted on score. If you do it by PNM, it will show the PNM and then everybody who voted on them. So depending on how you want to sort that, you can choose that here, and you can pull it via PDF or Excel. Comments here, this is where you, like I said, can have a little more specific report for the comments. So you can choose what round you're wanting to look at, and you can use that sort option again, either by user, PNM, or we also include time that the comment was submitted on this one. This is another version of the slideshow that we have. So the other is the in-browser slideshow. This one is a PowerPoint slideshow. So if you prefer PowerPoint, you can export this. It doesn't have as much information as the in-browser slideshow, but you can always add to that once you export it, and then you can include just your actives as well as the PNM picture here. We also have our voter distribution report. This is going to help see how your members are voting throughout the process. So you can pull it round by round. Basically, if you pull this for night 1 and everybody is giving really high votes and it's hard to make your list because every PNM has really good votes, you can use the distribution to see that and talk with your members about voting criteria, etc. Or opposite of that, maybe everybody's voting really low. You can just review that and be able to see that with your voter distribution. Also on your users and your PNMs, they individually have a voter distribution. So you can see how an individual voter is voting as well as votes on a specific PNM, how those are distributed. So those are nice just to break down the data if you're wanting to see any specifics. And then we also have, lastly, our voter audit report. This here is because you're able to change any votes in the system. So if anybody accidentally inputs an incorrect vote and they need it changed, an admin can do so. This voter or vote audit report is just going to show any changes made. So when you pull that report, it will show who made the change, what the original vote was, what the new vote is. If your organization has any like specific categories voted on, it'll show what category that was. Anything like that will be in that report, like anything that's changed. And that is everything for the P&M dropdown. So we'll move on to the user dropdown. Earlier, we looked at the user list here. I know I mentioned that you can look here for voter distribution. You can also look at any votes that are submitted by a user, any comments. You can look at their profile and you can add votes for them if that needs to be done, if something happened and they were having issues with their voting. And there you can look at their voter distribution. If you add a vote, it'll show in the vote audit report, and then the voter distribution is just showing individually how that user voted. And you can do that round by round. Again, this is how you can add your users. I know we looked at that earlier. And then you can pull a user report. This is really great to pull at the end of each semester, especially before May's master reset. That way you have all the users that were previously used, and it's a little easier to upload them come next fall. So just keep that in mind for this report here. Next, we're going to go to the hub here. So this shows graphs of key data points. So with any of these graphs, you can click on the little arrow here and it'll flip it around and show you the actual data points. You can download that with a little download button here, flip it back when you're done. This is just another way to review the data on a deeper level, make the most of the information that you have within OmegaRecruit. So this is just another tool you can have. Below the hub, we have the matching feature. So this tool is not a primary function of OmegaRecruit, but it can help you sort through the data in OmegaRecruit to determine which members should speak to each of your P&Ms that we'll be visiting during each round. There's 4 criteria here that you can use to generate potential matches. So we have recommendations, starred members and P&Ms, interests, and hometown. If you use this feature, your members will need to update their match profile. We can look at where you can do that on the user profile, but that way the data is available for them. So like if they're using interests or hometowns, they'll need to make sure they put that in their match profile, and as well as that you have that information for your P&Ms. For these, you can also select if they're required or not. So if you require recommendations, then even if a member has the same hometown as a P&M, unless they have a recommendation, they won't match. So keep that in mind when using the required here. And you can also adjust the importance of each of these as well. Here you can choose the max number of matches per member and per P&M. These go up to 500, but we do recommend starting somewhere between 2 and 5. If you have a bigger chapter, you're probably going to want a higher number, but just remember the higher the maximum, the more potential matches you have to sort through. So if you're, not wanting a ton of matches to sort through, you can use some lower numbers and work your way up if you need more matches. And then finally, you can select the round you're looking to do matches for and the party if that is applicable, and then you can generate your matches accordingly. When you view your results, you can look at that for all of the rounds as well, but when you're looking at your results, you can delete a match if you need to, so delete the selected, or you can add a new match if you need. So if you think that Hannah should talk to Janae, you can put that and put the reason for the match as well and save that. When you're looking at this, it'll also show the criteria of how they were matched, so you can see this was a starred member and a starred P&M, as well as this one's like interest that match. So there's a few different things. Once you've reviewed, deleted any you needed, added any you need, you can then pull that information. You can export it if you need. Underneath matching, we have the vote. We'll look at the ballot in a minute. I'm just an organization admin, like a super users, so that's why I don't have that. Admins and users within OmegaRecruit will be able to see this fine though. We'll go to the chapter tab now. We did kind of see this earlier when we did our edit rounds. The first overhead tab here though is for advancing your parties and rounds. So if you want to open up recruitment as soon as you're ready, once you open up recruitment, you can't set it back to before recruitment, so just make sure you're ready to open that. You can't always close rounds at the end of the night though, so if we want to go ahead and open rounds for voting for open house and party one, we can change that status. We'll go ahead and do that so we can look at the ballot. And then you can update your parties accordingly as you move through the recruitment process. If let's say there's only 5 parties in the first night and you need to close that round, you can do so at the end of the night so votes aren't coming in overnight. Again, this is where we edit our rounds earlier, so we looked at this when we added and changed the names. This is your edit chapter tab. This is if your chapter name needs to be updated, college, city, and then your recruitment dates accordingly. These are where you can edit the custom columns that are available for the P&M upload. So if you have custom columns that you used, you can rename them here and they'll pull into the P&M list according to whatever names you change them to. Here's where you can connect and disconnect from ICS. So you'll choose this option here and it'll walk you through the process of connecting to ICS. I do believe there's something you need from ICS, so you can reach out to your Greek life person to ask if there's any information that you need from them. And then this here is the master reset button, or the master reset tab. Definitely be very, very careful with this tab. You can use this to reset the system. Unlike the master reset that we do in May, this does not wipe your users. So all of your users will remain in the system, but it will wipe any votes, P&Ms, comments, anything previously uploaded. It will wipe all of that except for your users. It'll even reset everything to back before recruitment. So any rounds you set up, all of that will be reset. So we do suggest doing this after you do any practice recruitments. And before you're about to start your actual recruitment, you'll probably want to do a master reset if you used it to do mock recruitments. But once you start your actual recruitment, typically you're not going to want to do a master reset in the middle of recruitment. That is normally not going to ever be really the best option. So master reset, typically you're going to use that after recruitment to clear things out or after practice recruitments that you run. So just make sure you're careful with that. It will ask you again, are you sure you want to do the master reset? And it'll tell you what chapter you're in. So any advisors, if you are in multiple chapters, make sure you're paying attention to this as well. It'll tell you what chapter you're resetting that for. So that is everything in the chapter tab. We then have the configuration tab here. This is going to show just how voting is set up. So if your organization has anything specific, it will let you know here. But all the normal ballots are just going to be on a scale from 1 to 5. Typically that's what you'll see. And then each round column is going to be the average of all the votes within that round, and then the overall is the average of all the P&M votes across all the rounds. If you do have any specific configuration, you will see your organization's Greek letters here, and again, you'll have different information that will tell you how scores are calculated. Lastly, on this page, we have the training tab here. You can go to this, and this is one of our previous webinars. You can play through that if you need to walk through this again. And then these screenshots are walking through basically what we did today, setting up mock recruitment, and it goes through some of our other features. So if you want to walk through this, I believe tags are explained in here, as well as some other things. So you can use this as a step-by-step guide to look at how to go through mock recruitment and how to use each of the tools within OmegaRecruit. And then lastly, we do have our Get Help here. This is our help center. If you have any questions, you can go here, click through these menus, or if you have something specific you're looking for, you can use the search and any articles that pertain to that will come up. So you can use that accordingly. This is a great tool to find the things you're looking for. So if you have any questions about voting, you can click through and see if there's a call or there's an article that answers the question you need. Typically, there's going to be something out there. If not, you can reach out to our support team. I will put the information up while we do Q&A. Go ahead and hop back to the PowerPoint. Before we start Q&A, just a reminder, kind of tips and tricks, things that we talked about earlier. Preparation is going to be your best bet for success when it comes to recruitment. So again, remember that at least a week prior to recruitment, make sure you have all your members log in. You are practicing, so if you need to do a mock recruitment, practicing putting in votes, anything like that, and then training on your part as an admin. Those are things that you'll need to do beforehand. And before we move to that, let me go to the ballot. So this is what your ballots will look like for voting. So once you open voting, if your ballot doesn't look exactly like this, that's fine. Your organization may just have some different things or different scale, different categories that they use. So if it doesn't look exactly like this, that's fine. But typically this is about what it's going to look like. You can select a P&M here. Earlier when I was talking about open voting versus party voting, as you can see, there's a pretty short list here because it is broken down by party. So this is nice. I'm not having to go through all 100 P&Ms to find who I'm looking for. You can type this in, but again, if there's multiple different Ashleys or Haleys, that might get confusing. But once you put in the P&M, you can also check by their picture, click on their little light bulb here. It'll show their interest, high school, hometown, anything like that. So you can verify that that is the same P&M you were talking to. And then you can submit your vote accordingly. So you can put your vote and then any comment you want to put in, and then you can recommend a member match here. So if I think they would be a good match for Hannah to talk to, I can submit that. You'll also have, your members will have a user profile that they can, this is an admin account, but your users will have a profile that they can update with their interests when they log in. But this is what your ballot's going to look like. You can submit votes. As you submit votes, you see that P&M. So if I'm voting on Jamie, now Jamie is no longer going to be in this list. So it won't allow you to vote on P&Ms multiple times. And then when you go to that P&M list, now you'll see any votes that were put into the system. So any votes that were put into the system, you can see that for open house, as well as you go further into more rounds, you can see the average in the overall. And that is kind of everything. I'm going to go ahead, we'll go into our Q&A, but I'm also going to put up the contact information. Like I said, we have the help center, but if you aren't finding what you need there or in the training information, you can email recruitment_support@omegaphi.com. During recruitment season, that is 24/7. Beforehand, it's regular office hours, but we will start that closer to fall, that 24/7 support, and they are pretty quick with their responses if you need anything. So go ahead and shoot them an email if you're not finding exactly what you're looking for. But we'll go ahead and Heather, I'm going to turn it over to you for, I know you've been in the comment section, any questions that have come in?
Yeah, we have received lots of good questions, and I know we're nearing the end of our time. So I'll just get to those that I have not been able to answer yet, and we'll go ahead and answer those live. So one question was about the P&M upload, about adding the city and state in the same column. And the question is, if we choose to do that, do the custom columns have to match the header exactly in the list that we upload? And I know in the sample file it has city and state together in the same column. Sarah Beth, can you confirm that that is what OmegaRecruit requires?
I don't think there's a specific format, so you could just put like the city and then you could do a custom column that's the state,
Gotcha. Okay.
and then just rename it later. It would let you know when you go to upload it, but I don't know that you have to put the city and state in the same column. I just know typically that's the format that's followed.
Okay. Okay. That's probably a good solution then if you want them to be separated, to put the city in that one column and then create a custom column for state and then put the state in that one and
Hmm.
rename it. Okay. Next question is there any way to check to see if a PNM does not have a vote? Is that back on the PNM list and the vote distribution?
Yeah, I would say the best way to see if a PNM doesn't have a vote is just to use the sort function. If you're looking for a specific round, you can sort accordingly. So like you can see everybody who has a vote. If you want to sort it the other way, anybody who doesn't have a vote will show at the bottom. That would be the way I would do it. And then same if you're looking at the overall as well.
Okay. All right. Next question is, you said once party lists were uploaded, only PNMs in that party would appear if it's set to party instead of open. What if a PNM's party changes last minute? How do votes get submitted?
If they have a last minute change in that, you can re-upload the party list, so you can just edit the list accordingly and re-upload that, and it'll override the previous information to update the member to have a party. If it was somebody who didn't have a party before, you may have to go in and mark them back active, but if it was just somebody who was in a different party, then it should just change the party they're in.
Okay. All right. So do the re-upload. All right. And can multiple admins view and edit information within the system simultaneously? And I believe the answer to that is yes.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. And then is there a way to ensure that the same sister is not matched to the same PNM in multiple rounds?
I would do that just by cross-referencing your information. I think I am not as skilled with the matching, but I think there may be something in the system pulls members who have already been matched with a PNM, but I don't know that for certain. I can follow up on that though. But if nothing else, you can pull files for each round and then just make sure that they're not talking to any of the same people.
And then that's all of the questions that came through live from our attendees. You all had great questions. There was one other pre-submitted question, Sarah Beth. Um, well, there were several pre-submitted questions, but I believe you went over everything that was asked there, except for one where someone may be having access to or having issues with getting access to ICS. So if that's the case, I believe we would need to instruct them to go to software support at OmegaFi.com and then get that login fixed and all set. And then once you get into ICS and do the connection there, then everything should pull into OmegaRecruit as it needs to. Anything
Yes,
else you would add to that?
I think that is perfect.
All right. Well, I think that's it. I thank you all for hanging out with us a few extra minutes. I know we went a little over, but great questions, and we are glad to stay a little bit later and make sure that you have everything that you need and all the information that you need to have a successful recruitment. Sarah Beth put the emails up there for anything that you may need. If it's OmegaRecruit specific, you can contact us at OmegaRecruit, or excuse me, recruitment_support at OmegaFi.com. Anybody having login issues, login support at OmegaFi.com. And then, of course, our help center is out there 24/7. So feel free to contact us anytime, and we wish you the best of luck with the upcoming recruitment season. I hope everybody has a good evening.